Let's talk about how to balance the books. Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, and our idiom, our expression today for Supersize Your Business is how to balance the books. Balance the books, of course, comes from an accounting term. It's actually been around since the late 1500s. So it's one of the older, not one of the oldest, but one of the older idioms that we've talked about. And of course, it comes from accounting. It comes from checks and balances, balancing our credits versus our debits, and making sure that our accounting and our financial statements are in line with what's going on in our businesses. Our inflows versus our outflows to measure cash flow. But all of our expenses versus our assets. We want to make sure that those things balance. Now, I don't know about you, but I've struggled in my entire life to achieve some sort of a balance between work and relationships and kids and family and creating a living and having a career. And I, over the years and through my vast experiences and choices, have come to believe that balance is it's a challenge for many of us. It's a myth. I actually think it's pretty much a myth. I think there's times in our life when we focus more on our families. There's times in our lives when we focus more on our businesses. There's times in our lives when we focus on our health and on ourselves. Now, of course, we want to consider all those areas and aspects of our life, at least at some level, but they take different priority based on the stage of our life, what we're doing. When I was a young mom, or I was never really a young mom, when I was a mom, my kids were little and I was raising my kids, that was a much higher priority than a lot of other things would be in my life, mainly my health and other things that probably shouldn't have sacrificed and ignored, but did. And I think each of us, as we go through our journey, experience and determine, based on our own personal priorities, what balance is to us, what needs more or less emphasis, depending on what's going on in what our situation is. It's all situational. So I actually think this is an important idiom for us to consider, but not lose sight of what it is that we really want in our life and how we want to go about achieving it. How I achieve my balance, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would argue that I'm still very off balance and I'm not particularly following what they would consider a balanced lifestyle. I find work really fun and pleasurable for me. So growing businesses, creating businesses, being involved in business is like a hobby for me. So even though some people would say, hey, you should be retiring, I'm like, no, I'm probably never going to stop doing these things, because for me they are fun and energizing and they keep my life going. So people would say, my family says it all the time, oh, you're so out of balance, you work too much, da 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 da. So it doesn't matter what other people think, it matters what feels right, feels good to us. Now, if you're like I was in my 40s, out of balance, and knew I was out of balance, and not taking care of myself, not doing some of the things I knew I should have done, and ended up causing me to have a huge health challenge, then we want to address that. We want to say what's important, but it's always based on what's important to you, and it's what's really important to you, not what other people or things outside of you say should be important to you. And that's a big difference. Lived a lot of years, and I think most of us do, doing what we should do. And there's a big difference between what we should do and what our desires are and what we want and what we really want to create with our businesses and with our lives. I think that's why a lot of us start our own businesses, because we want to find a situation and an environment that works for us and how we want to live our lives, not what works for another person or another organization and how they expect us to live our lives. In my corporate days, I spent 80 plus hours some weeks, most weeks, traveling or at work. It made it really, really hard to be the good mom I wanted to be a great mom and spouse. So sometimes things have to give. So balance, in addition to just balancing the books, the debits and the credits, assets and the liabilities and owner's equity and all those good accounting terms, which I obviously outsourced decades ago. It's important so that we have a snapshot and a scorecard to know what we're doing. How is our business doing? At least here's the struggle with balances and accounting and balance sheets. They're an indicator and a picture of the past, how we performed in the past. They're used as a predictor of the future, but they're really not, because our future is wide open. We can create whatever we want, and it doesn't matter what we've done in the past. Just like our balance sheet, it's just a snapshot of the past. Our past is just a snapshot of things that have happened to us and experiences that we've had. We are the drivers of our future balance sheets, our future creations, and I think that it's important to have a scorecard, but there's certain situations where we should not have a scorecard. I think in relationships, if you have a scorecard, you're in trouble. I mean, if it's him or well, whatever your relationship is, if you're keeping score, that's going to be a problem. Now, the trick is we all keep score. We all subconsciously keep score of what's important to us and how we think people treat us, etc. But in some things we need a balance sheet, and keeping score, keeping track of our accounting is very important for any type of business. It helps us see where the strengths and the weaknesses are in our business. If we are leaning too heavily on investors or investment or credit, and we're not having the cash flow to pay that back, that's an indicator that we need to do something different in our business. Anyway, love to know your experience with balancing the books. How good are you at that? I did my own accounting when I first started out in my businesses, and one of the first people that I brought in as an expert to help me as I got more and more businesses and it got more and more complicated was a good accountant, a good certified public accountant, and then an accounting firm. So you have to figure out what are the needs of you and your business. Where are your strengths? Where's the balance between what you want to do and what you don't want to do? Because in the beginning we do a lot more of everything, and we then start farming out the things that we want other people to help us do. And I always say, farm out the things that you don't like the most, or that you like the least, or that you need other experts to help you with because it's not your area of expertise. Tend to be focusing on the things that we love to do, and we can keep doing those forever. Let's build our business around our strengths. All right, have an awesome day. Share what you have experienced with balancing the books below, and I will be with you tomorrow with another interesting idiom, another couple of book idioms. What does it mean? Where does it come from? And how might you use it in your business and maybe even in your life today? Have an amazing Monday. Bye.